as we start to delve into hypnosis, one thing we need to really look at here is, I guess, debunking this idea that, you're going to be doing stage hypnosis, bringing people up on stage and having them cluck like a chicken or anything like that. That's not really all that useful. Essentially, we all have experienced hypnosis at some stage. Now, basically, hypnosis is essentially trance. Now, there are so many different levels of trance. You can be in a really deep trance where you're not really utilizing your conscious mind at all. And a lot of, tribal cultures would have, dance and song and drum beat, and sometimes would use hallucinogens and stuff to get in that sort of state of trance, right? Now, there's other states of trance where we're here, but we're not here. So now another example of that would be, say, driving your car somewhere and you're maybe listening to a story, or you're listening to the music, or you're daydreaming about something else. And then all of a sudden you rock up at your destination. And we've all experienced that. You were there, but you weren't there. And that's another experience of trance. And then there's the experience of trance where we might be watching, say, like a movie. Let's say that you watched the movie Titanic, for instance, and the last scene, spoiler alert, that you've got, Jack is in the water, he's freezing, and you've got Rose that's on the door floating on the ocean, and she's like, "Don't let go, Jack." And then all of a sudden you start crying when he lets go, and she's crying, you're freezing. Why? You're not in the water. You didn't just lose the love of your life, yet you're crying and you're freezing. Why? Because you've allowed yourself to be so hypnotized, so involved, so associated to the story that's playing out, which is beautiful. That's the power of a really good movie, I think, when we're so drawn in. And that's when we have really impactful characters in movies and really, impactful actors. That's when we can get so drawn into the story itself. And when the movie is so well done that it's almost hard to believe that it's a movie, that's when we're totally involved. So we kind of want to do that with storytelling. And essentially, in the work that we do, we want to move people at some level, ideally from disempowerment to empowerment. If you're going to be speaking to an audience, you don't want to put them into a disempowered state. You want to take them from some sort of state that maybe not be as empowering to as empowered as you possibly can. To be an empowered speaker, you want to leave that space and left an impact, left a mark, started a ripple effect. But to do this, we need to realize that ultimately trance is a natural, normal thing. And really, one of the forefathers of this concept of modern day hypnosis or trance is a guy called Dr. Milton Erickson. So born in 1901 and passed away in 1980. His work in modern day hypnosis is some of the best, I believe, mostly because the way in which he conducts his hypnosis, or the way in which he really was known for his hypnosis strategies, was essentially through indirect hypnosis, which is the ability to induce trance without directly telling the client that they were going to go into trance. And he was a fantastic storyteller. And one thing that he did amazingly, right, was he would actually have these clients come in, because he was a practicing psychologist. And he'd have his clients come in and he'd say, "So tell me, what exactly is the problem that you think you have?" And the client would go on and on and on about the perceived problem they thought they had. And he'd let them go, let them speak. And then he'd say to them, "How did you know that was the best way to go into trance?" They go, "Sorry, what? When did you decide that was a problem?" I'm like, "I'm not sure. Well, I guess it would have been, there you go. How did you know that was the best way to go into trance?" And they'd start to feel a bit strange. He's like, "You remind me of my friend's brother's sister's brother's sister's brother's mother." She was just like you. But something was different. Something changed. I'm not saying you're changing right now, but something changed. For her, at least. How'd you know that was the best way to go in a trance? That's right. Because it's interesting, isn't it, that we can, go all together so easily there and everywhere. And it's amazing how we can just realize, can't we? And sometimes he wouldn't even finish the stories. But the power in that was the client was able to finish the stories for themselves. And isn't that interesting? Wonder what that could mean. And sometimes he would add a little bit of content, or he'd do some intervention work or some other strategies, some other hypnosis techniques. And then what he'd do is he'd finish each of the stories. And I think what sums up beautifully the work of Dr. Milton Erickson is this quote: most people walk through the world in a trance of disempowerment. Our work is to transform that into a trance of empowerment. If you just read that again, isn't that interesting? Most people walk through the world in a trance of disempowerment. Our work is to transform that into a trance of empowerment. And this is the interesting thing about trance, really. You can go in a trance and you can come back out of trance. You can take your audience in, you can take them out. And it's as easy as consciously slowing right down and consciously then speeding back up, using tonality to go into a trance-like state, and then having the ability to come out of trance again and speak naturally and normally. Because the more we can dip into trance, the more in trance you actually go. That's the most interesting thing about this. And you don't have to tell a story necessarily. I was just reading a statement then. And isn't it interesting? I can just read a statement and I can take people into trance. I can take myself into trance. I'm not saying that you are going into trance, or you have gone into trance, or you're going into trance right now, or that you're currently in trance. But what I can say to you is that trance does naturally occur when we allow ourselves to go past that critical factor, right? We talked about that before. Story is a great way we can do this. And I've told so many stories right now. And it's not really the story that matters. It's about you being associated to the story, right? So one really important thing when it comes to hypnosis is you must always go first. And if I seem like I'm a bit weird in this video, it's because maybe I'm going first, and maybe you're going with me, or maybe you're going first and I'm going with you, or maybe we're both going into trance together. Isn't that interesting? But again, Milton Erickson said the following: it is impossible not to be hypnotized by someone in trance. Isn't that interesting? When one goes into trance first, hypnotic rapport will bring another person into trance. Because it would be useful, wouldn't it? To have your audience all in trance, wouldn't it? I'm not saying in a trance of disempowerment, but a trance of empowerment. Because to have unconscious rapport with your audience, that would be perfect, wouldn't it? To have them totally impacted, totally in a place of empowerment by the time I left. That's right. Isn't that interesting? And all you have to do is go first. And this is the cool thing about trance too. It can be a lot of fun. And though it might seem a little weird at first, it's amazing how quickly and naturally your audience start to get used to it. And you can just start to speak really normally after you've done a bit of a trance induction and you played around with it a little bit. And naturally, normally, people start to go into trance now all the way down. That's right. There you go. And in that, it's amazing how suddenly, because you're going into trance and you're allowing them to pace and lead, or you're pacing and leading, that naturally this unconscious rapport takes place and people can't help but go into trance now, all the way down, all the way, 3, 2. And that brings us to fractionation. So fractionation is a really interesting concept and something you can really embed into what you're already doing. So every time someone goes into trance, they are learning to go deeper into trance, essentially. Every time, all the way down. That's what happens. And it becomes easier for them to access a deeper trance state every time trance is elicited. Cool, right? So you need to do it a couple of times at the start, and then you can say these anchor words like all the way down now, all the way down. There you go. That's right. Isn't that interesting? And this will induce trance at some level. But you need to kind of have a couple of keywords that you use as these anchors, essentially. And this means every time your audience goes into trance, they will build stronger rapport with their unconscious mind and therefore access and unlock deeper states of unconscious wisdom, knowledge, and resources, which is going to guide them to empowerment. Because we're not here to really tell people what to do, but we can be really subtle and really impactful by showing them where to look. And if they feel it, they'll heal it.